Thank you, Madam Chairman, and welcome, Secretary Cardona. I'm glad to have a Secretary of Education that believes in the power of public education and is willing to support and protect our students in the public education system. I'm also encouraged that the President has continuously spoken to the issues of equity and eliminating disparities. And with regard to what our children have been educated in, I am very much aware of the fact that the experience of the African American building of this country has been woefully inadequately dealt with in our public education system. And that is something that we need to do something about. And if we are seeking to look for an expansive civics program that recognizes the contributions that other communities, be they indigenous communities, Latin communities, Black communities, their contribution to making this government great, the opportunity for students to learn at a very young age to respect and to recognize that these are communities of dignity and demand and are warranted respect. That's a good thing, because our children become our adults. And one thing we don't want is to have a whole bunch of uninformed adults that seize upon the capital of the United States again, wrongfully guided, wrongfully coerced into doing things that were anti-democratic and were also anti-unification of this country. Mr. Secretary, do you believe that there is any such thing as separate but equal in education? And that's kind of a yes or a no.
You know, we need to provide inclusive opportunities for students.
So do you believe that you can acquire equal and separate?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you. Because I understand that there's going to be a huge investment in our underserved, underperforming schools. I'm particularly aware of the whole Abbott experience in the state of New Jersey. I'm sure you are too, where for decades we have been putting additional money into urban schools that have been underperformed, that are intensely populated by impoverished children from impoverished families, and how all of that investment has not yielded the kind of equality and outcomes that we're expecting. So I'd like to know what this administration's plan is to desegregate our schools, to ensure that there is equity of education, and to ensure that students, irrespective of the zip code from which they come, will have access to good, diverse, and high-performing schools.
Thank you for your passion. And let me just comment really quickly on what you said earlier about the experiences of not only African American, Latinos, but also AAPI and women in our country's history is critically important for all students to hear. And not just for those students who are of that background, for all students to see the contribution.
And not to be celebrated 1 month a year, every year, throughout their learning experience. Absolutely.
Correct. Thank you for that. But, you know, we have in this budget plan also a request for 100 million to help diversify our schools, provide programming where students learn in a diverse setting. I benefit as a father from having my children learn in a diverse environment. I can't tell you, there's not a price I could put on that. For me, it's really important that my students, my children, my own personal children, learn in an environment where they see people that look like them, but also people that are very different from them. That's what we want to do to prepare our students for a world that's like that. And I think there is an investment in that in this budget plan, and there's a strong belief in this administration, in this department, that there's value for our students in that.
I know that, Secretary, and I need to see how we intend to accomplish that, because all the good intentions in the world, need to be followed by a plan of action and a degree of accountability. And that hasn't been the situation. So I really look forward to that. One quick question. States have to have their plans in to reopen schools by June the 7th. How soon thereafter do you think those schools will have the resources to actually implement the plans?
We want to get the funding out as soon as possible. So, if we get them in June, we're going to move it along. There should be no delay. What we want to ensure in that June 7th plan is that there's aim for equity, as was mentioned today on this call, and also ensuring that stakeholders are part of that process. Parents should be in the conversation at the beginning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I realize my time is up. If there is a second round, I certainly do want to talk to the Secretary about some other issues, particularly impacting African-American students, Black students in particular. Thank you very much, and I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you for standing by what you believe is the right thing for our students. And we had enough of Betsy DeVos and her misguided policies for 4 years. Let me just say that when I do the pledge allegiance to the flag and I say one nation under God, I feel something when I say that because I believe it. And so I'm very much appreciative of the fact that you've mentioned that a number of times. I know that most recently there was a collaborative and a new collaborative that was created, and that there was a national convening for 2 days around educational issues, particularly relating to the pandemic learning loss.
It was just
You familiar?
The reopening summit? Is that what you're referring to?
Well, I have it down here as the national convening of the collaborative, a 2-day discussion of leaders and stakeholders to design evidence-based programs to address the pandemic loss.
The Summer Learning Collaborative, yes.
Okay. I'm really interested in knowing some of the outcomes, particularly as they relate to the impact of the pandemic learning loss on minority students, and what we're proposing with regard to giving that the attention it needs.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. The Summer Learning Collaborative was really intended to make sure we take innovative ideas, best practices from across the country, share them with the focus on recovering from the pandemic in non-traditional ways. I often said I'd love to have summer learning programs without one ditto, right? We need students to have hands-on experiences. So that's what that was. We're going to be releasing a report soon, probably next month, about the impact of the pandemic on different students, to make sure that when we reopen schools, we're addressing those with energy and making sure that the resources that we have are aimed at that. Definitely will keep you in the loop and look forward to having more conversations with you about
and particularly mental health services for Black youth in particular. Thank you very much. Let me just say that New Jersey has a reputation for having one of the best school systems in the country, but we also have the most segregated school system, one of the most segregated school systems, and you'll find the differential is very stark in what happens in those schools. And I very much am a magnet school person. I've got lots of ideas. What I think that the other schools should have been laboratories, and that we should have learned from and be able to apply, not substitute for just plain old public schools. And I look forward to having discussions with you because this is a very important subject to me. And I thank you for being here. And Madam Chair, I yield back and thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you.